Like, the angry part of it was something that, like, it just developed over time because I've always been someone who's very opinionated, who always was observant and just, talking about things. And, a lot of times just being a black person who talks about black issues is enough to get you deemed angry. And especially when you're doing it, like, originally it was like primarily a white audience and I was talking about a lot of this stuff before. So in that kind of environment, just from the fact that you bring up the issues and you say things that might make people uncomfortable, even if they're true, you get deemed angry a lot of the time, even when you're not, and you're just saying, you're just making observations and you're just saying what is. So for a while, I kind of ran away from it. I wanted to just kind of fight off the label because I wasn't really necessarily angry a lot of the time. I was just saying, this is just what's happening. But over time, I think as the respectability factor kind of faded off, it's kind of one of those things that I just took on. A lot of times, I am angry. A lot of people are angry. I think we have good reason to be angry. So there is no reason for me to run away from that label, even whether it applies or not. And the homo part was actually just completely random because at first, like, I cycled through just different display names on Twitter, as people who follow me know. So at first it was Angry Black Homo, just HOMO. But then when I decided to start doing like blogging more and kind of branding myself a little bit, I was actually going to change like my username. But then I found out like some just random person on Twitter had Angry Black Homo already, just like some random account from like 2011 that tweeted like 8 times already had the name taken. So I had to kind of think on my feet for what I wanted to make the name. I didn't want to do that silly thing where you have like the numbers and stuff in the name. So I sat there for like 5 minutes trying to think of what I could do with it, and then just HOEMO just popped up in my head just randomly, and I was like, it was perfect. So it stuck for me because I feel like it kind of affirms every part of myself, that particularly what I take very seriously in terms of blackness and queerness, sex positivity, and also it does it in kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of way that it's not like taking myself too serious. So originally it was kind of wanting to fill a void, talking about things that I didn't see talked about a lot, like, kind of in my little corner of social media, different things that kind of would drive me a little bit, whether it's, the racism that I would experience from other gay people, or, like erasure, sex shaming, a lot of those different things. And then also, politically what's going on, like, with what's going on in Washington when Obama was president at the time. I was one of the handful of people who was like opposed to damn near everything he was doing. I've always enjoyed sexuality, sex, everything about it. It's just been interesting. Even where I'm not necessarily sexually attracted to something or interested in something, like I'm interested in learning about it or hearing about it. So a lot of, and also, it wasn't something that was always common. Like, I was usually kind of off in the corner by myself in that area because I didn't know other people who were like, at least in my immediate, accessible places or my spaces, I didn't know where to find that. So, for me, it was usually finding communities on the internet. A couple of years after I graduated, I found the leather community. It was just kind of like adjacent to BDSM culture and all that. So that's kind of where I took ownership of, like, being unapologetic of owning my sexuality and just doing it in like a way that was genuine for me and not feeling like I had to put on a performance for anybody or hold myself back or feeling like I had to act like I was just this non-sexual person for the sake of making other people comfortable. Like, the leather community was a space that actually gave me a chance to just be out sexually and own that. And that kind of sexuality ownership, it lent itself to unapologetic blackness, I guess, kind of in my activism, kind of in having a more radical point of view of things. And this is kind of one of the things that I talk about, how sexual liberation is tied to black liberation. I think that mindset of being able to own who you are and not apologize for it, I think it lends itself to unapologetic blackness perfectly. So I think it's more of a community thing for me. Like black queer folks, black trans folks especially, people who I think have a lot more skin in the game than I do, people who like are maybe more poor and working class type folks who like they see a lot of the system even to a greater extent than what I do. So I think that knowing that they have more at stake than I do gives me more of a drive and a motivation to want to like do work, but from their perspective and not try and appeal to the bourgeoisie and all. That's kind of the lens that I try and work from, you know, kind of taking myself out of the center of it a little bit. But also, I mean, like knowing that working from that viewpoint also ultimately would benefit me as well. So, yeah. I don't know, I see a lot of parts of blackness and queerness and also black queerness where I see a lot of folks who, there's like this inner struggle of trying to either work towards liberation versus work towards assimilating. And I see a lot of, you know, the latter, people just who, you know, they want to find a space at the table as it exists rather than just breaking the table and destroying it and building something new. Feel like it's easier or it's less work to try and just reform the system from within, but I think we've seen over and over again instances where the system's not trying to be reformed. So I see a lot of that inner struggle, and then also just kind of the respectability aspect, you know, like it's not something that I personally see as much these days because I've put myself around a good core group of people that, you know, give me space to be myself, and then I do the same for them. But I see a lot of circles of like black queerness where it's about like, oh, well, you know, I believe we should be a little bit more discreet about who we are and like, you know, not feeling the need to be open about our sexuality or the things that we do and all, like, not, and also, you know, oh, like, oh, well, gays are so extra out in public and like always being so flamboyant and shit. But I'm like, well, when you live in a world that tells you that, you know, gayness has to subdue itself and put itself in a closet and be all these things, I think it's perfectly understandable that, you know, every now and then a gay person might want to be extra. I'm kind of hoping that the work that I do kind of contributes in pushing us more towards a radical direction. Well, it's simple, really. It's just a world where everybody can just be themselves and just respect everyone else as who they are, and just have the space to be able to, you know, just be yourself, do whatever the hell you want to do in your life, and, you know, just be productive in whatever way you see fit.
Okay, so what is your favorite song right now?
It literally changes every week. I would say currently Beyonce Haunted, probably favorite of all time at the beach, Janelle Monáe Say You'll Go.
Okay, what's your favorite food?
Crawfish.
Something you love to do on the weekends?
Have sex.
One thing on your bucket list?
I love to smoke weed with Janelle Monáe one time, or drink bourbon or wine, whatever she likes to do.
And one lesser known fact about you?
I am double jointed, so I can do this over and over again, and it grosses people out.